Welcome, everyone, to the Co-Creators Convergence Thursday night Creator Convo. I'm Noelle Marshall, and I'm here with my beloved. Okay, he's muted.
Good evening, everyone. That's very rare, isn't it? Except for when she mutes me. It's wonderful to have you all with us this evening. And whatever time on earth you're watching this from the archives and the Co-Creators Convergence website, or if you're with us on Facebook, delightful to have you with us this evening. Karen, Rachelle, thank you for being such a great support of this community and bringing others to share their gift of the shift in humanity. Very exciting evening. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you. And thank you, Rachelle, for introducing us to Karen Michelle. I'm just so excited. And so I know you all want to hear more from them than me. So let me tell you a little bit about the Co-Creators Convergence, and then I'm going to turn it over to you, beautiful mediums of so many talents. So hold on just 1 second. Let me do a screen share here, and we'll get going. So that is a little bit about the Co-Creators Convergence. You can see we have wonderful guests. And Rachelle, you've been with us twice as you've done reading parties for us, and you've invited me to some of your Sunday gatherings. And through that, I met Karen Michelle. So I said, Karen Michelle, you need to bring Karen Michelle to meet the CCC. So before I turn it over to you, Rachelle, and Karen, I want to tell you everyone a little bit about Rachelle. She has worked as a psychic medium for over 10 years and sees clients regularly. As a niece of the world-renowned psychic medium, Reverend Gehman, Rachelle grew up in a spiritualist family. She was mentored by her aunt at a young age to utilize her gifts naturally. Before moving fully into her gift of mediumship, Rachelle spent over 30 years in business development, helping clients with custom services, strategies, and solutions to bring new concepts to market. Rachelle works with highly sensitive women who want to learn more about their individual spiritual growth, as well as business clients, to impact change by guiding business professionals to consider adding a spiritual practice to their everyday life. And you can find out more about Rachelle. You can reach her through her website, RachelleGehman.com. Now, thank you so much for being here, Rachelle. And I know you're going to lead us in a meditation, and then drum roll, we get to meet Karen Michelle. So without any further ado, I'm going to duck out of here and leave it to you two beautiful beings. What a wonderful evening this is going to be.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Noelle. That is such a wonderful, I'm humbled and honored with that introduction. Thank you so much. And what I want to do tonight before we introduce Karen Michelle and bring her on, and her wonderful background that is just amazing and is so healing. I thought it might make sense for all of us to build the energy and the love vibration through a meditation and a centering meditation where we just really start to build and open our hearts and minds to what Karen Michelle brings to us. So with that, if everybody can just take a moment and just get centered, make sure that you're fully grounded, come fully into your body, and just open up your heart and feel the love that's all around you. And really think about something that you unconditionally love and bring that into your heart. And just start to breathe. Inhale up and exhale down. And just relax and allow everything to just fall away. And really find the essence of your spirit within you. And feel how beautiful that is. And we'll just open it up and open it up to the infinite intelligence and spirit, bringing them in, blending with them. Father, Mother God, we are just so grateful for this wonderful opportunity to share the gift of Karen Michelle and allow her to touch each and every one of us in her gift that she's brought back from her near-death experience, and allow the resonance, the energy, frequency, and vibration of the love and authenticity that is here to just guide us, reassure us, bring healing, and allow it to just flow throughout us as we have this wonderful experience with Karen Michelle this evening. And so with that, we're going to allow ourselves to continue to feel the love as we go through this wonderful experience with Karen Michelle tonight. And with that, I say amen. Oh, the energy is so good tonight. Thank you so much. Well, without further ado, we keep talking about Karen Michelle, and I am just so excited to introduce you to her. And Dr. Karen Michelle, she actually has a doctorate in clinical psychology, and she has a certificate in resonant kinesiology as far as an instructor. And she is a facilitator for near-death experiencers and spiritually transformational experiencers as well. She also has done, I can vouch for this, is that she's done a lot of work in her psychic mediumship. It's a gift that came in when she had her NDE, and it's something that's been with her since she was a child. And I can tell you, through going through my classes, she has become a phenomenal psychic medium. And Dr. Karen Michelle, she's actually an experiencer. She's had 4 near-death experiences, and she works with clients. She has a gentle and welcoming energy and such a wonderful spiritual presence. She's very supportive and sensitive, and her specialties are just amazing in what she can do. She actually does resonant kinesiology with the harp, and she's going to tell us how this came about, and that she facilitates therapeutic music and sound interventions, and she's also helped instruct people who have been that are looking for that music to help with hospice patients as well. So it's very interesting, her background, And she's been able to bring all of this experience together to be of service and serving the community and taking care of people who have had trauma and need recovery. And she does do speaking events and conferences as well, where she has actually played the harp in that area. So without further ado, Karen Michelle, it's so good to see you. And I'm so grateful that you're here. And we look forward to hearing you play the harp this evening. But, I guess I wanted to talk to you a little bit and find out a little bit about all your near-death experiences. I know that we've talked about, maybe you can share with us about how many you've had and what was very significant about these near-death experiences and how you were brought to the harp, if that would be all right for you to share.
Yes, and again, I want to say thank you so much, Noelle, for having me on, and thank you, Rachelle, for hosting. And it's just been a joy meeting both of you and Rachelle. It's been just amazing to be able to work under you. Also, this has just been an amazing experience, and also I need to mention that it's been wonderful working with Sean, who's on here too. I noticed that he's on here, and I've worked with him at Ions, Hawaiian Ions events. He is the owner of the Hawaiian Ions events, which is the International Association for Near-Death Experiencers, and that is just an amazing and awesome resource, and he does amazing groups. So thank you for being here, Sean.
Well, yeah, so Karen Michelle, it's so good to have you. Why don't you spend a little bit of time talking about your NDEs, your near-death experience, some of the things, and what that brought back for you, and kind of maybe take us through that timeline.
Sure. My early, as a toddler, coming in as an NDE, I remember the experiences, and I'll talk about them. But I didn't know the term NDE, and as a toddler, I didn't know all the terms in language. So to me, this was a normal experience to coming in, and it was a normal experience as a toddler. But there was an incident, an accident, and I ended up with a hospital stay. And my memories of the incident were filled in later by my mother, and so my memory around that is foggy, but it's not the main part. It's not what I'm having to remember, and it's not what I'm having to put together. What the memory is for me is in the hospital, waking up and looking around and being in this room that wasn't familiar to me. And I think it was in the crib they put you in there, and this is back in the 60s. And all of a sudden these enormous hand, they were not human. When I say enormous, they're enormous. They were, it won't fit on the screen, but just giant hands reaching down, and it was very welcoming, extremely welcoming, and scooping me up and just cradling me. And I felt like this little tiny pea size, baby in these arms. And then they took me to a different place. And describing it, it sounds like a tunnel. I don't remember experiencing it like a tunnel. I just remember being taken to different universes, and I thought they were different planets. And that's how my memory is. The colors were vivid and beautiful. The flowers were vivid and beautiful. The smells were absolutely amazing. And the colors were just, I can't even describe how vibrant they were. And I went from this room to these bright, 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 amazing, beautiful, not scary. And these beings were there. So I wasn't alone. And I looked around, and there were other children. There were other toddlers. So I was not the only one there. In part of the clearing down in kind of a meadowy area, there was a harp. I didn't know what a harp was, by the way. I just know by the shape and what I have now, it was a harp. And I remember being fascinated by it. I kind of walked by it, circled around it, and walked on back. I was brought back to the hospital during the time that I was there, which later on I was told was a little over a week. I was brought to different places. So this continued where these amazing, beautiful arms came in and took me from one place to another. And after a while, I saw the whole being, where then I saw the face, these beautiful, luminous eyes. And at just before I left the hospital, what they told me was, if you want to talk to me, use this. They didn't say harp, they said this. And I remember again walking around it, putting my face up to the soundboard and thinking, there's an echo. Okay, okay. And when I got back home later on, as in much later, I noticed a picture at my grandparents' house, and it was Mozart's orchestra. There was a harp in it. And I pointed at it and I looked at my mom. I said, that's what I'm supposed to do. That's how I talk to them. And she said, who's them? And I said, that's who I saw when I was staying in that room. And she knew from my description what room I was talking about and where it was. But how you get a harp was it wasn't obvious at that time. She played piano. And I remember sitting under the piano while she was playing, and I would talk up into I'd feel the resonance and the vibrations of the piano, and I would kind of talk up into the harp of the piano from the underside. So it would be many years till I got a harp. But that was where it was presented to me. Ooh, that did a lot of shifting there.
Well, that was really great. And then, Karen Michelle, can you share with us a little bit about, was that really when your gifts came in, or were there other NDEs? I know that you've had a total of 4, and there was some pretty significant ones that came after that. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And, it seems like NDEs, people come back with all these wonderful gifts and they're very open. So maybe you can share that with us.
I was very open about them, and I didn't realize they were gifts at the time. I called them the opera people, because I would hear this amazing singing in my room at night. And I would go to the window and kind of reach up and look out the shade, and I'd look for them. And at some point during that time when I would hear them, I'd see these, I'm going to call them angels, these beings come in. There were usually 2 of them, sometimes 3. And they were so tall, they didn't fit in the room. So they were arced over. But their voices, again, the resonance from their voices were just amazing, and their eyes were amazing. This wasn't scary to me, and it seemed normal. When it didn't seem normal was when I talked to other people, both in my family and then just a few of I mentioned it to a babysitter, and they looked at me like, well, like I had a horn growing out of my head, and they got nervous. Babysitter got nervous. And then my mom had mentioned to me, she believed me, but she said that it wasn't a good idea to talk about this outside of the home. And then a step further, that maybe in front of certain family members, this isn't a good idea to talk about either. The other gifts that came in were knowing things about people or an event before it happened. And that was also, why don't you can tell me about it if you want to talk about it, but that's not something you can share with other people because it might be scary. And at that, hearing the word scary, then at that point, I got scared. So I did what I could to kind of shut it down. And so for a handful of years, actually more than a handful of years, I shut it down in myself, which might be why I had more NDEs. Because I think when spirit wants you to have certain things, they want you to be on a certain path, a certain purpose, and you go off that path as you go through life, they move you right back on that path. And that's what I'm learning.
Yeah, Karen Michelle, you know, it's really interesting because I think a lot of people who have these gifts, especially as a child, we tend to like shut them down or turn them off because it's not acceptable, right? And so, and you experienced that as well. I had as well. And so you knew how that is. And then you also want that sense of belonging. So, um, and that's part of it. That it's not accepted and you don't want to seem like you're the weird kid.
I I didn't, and I get into middle school several years later, which at that time it was called junior high. I don't know when it got shifted to middle school, but when I was in it, it was junior high. And for whatever reason, it opened back up again. And so here I'm doing reads on different friends that I'm making there. And
Mhm.
it was normal there. But I got caught by a couple teachers, and somebody said something to a counselor, and it got reported as abnormal behavior. Um, and I don't know if that was from a belief system there, or I don't really know. But again, it was shut down at that time until there was an occurrence where my mom saw what I saw. She actually saw it, felt it, sensed it, and she looked at me and she said, "Is this what's been going on?" And I said, "Yes." And this was already 4 years later, which is a long time for a child.
Yeah. Yeah. So Karen Michelle, do you, maybe you might want to share if you feel comfortable the other NDEs that you had and who actually the angels that came in and how it felt and what you felt. I think that people who haven't had an NDE don't really understand the love that is there for everyone to access. And so I guess, if there's areas that you want to focus on or share, I know that an NDE is a very intimate experience and it's different from every NDE or experiences it differently. But I'm just wondering because of what you experienced, how magical and what transpired. And if you could share that, it just gives a lot of people hope on the love that is so amazing that we can access.
Sure. When I was in my 20s, and I was doing body work at that time, which is funny because I was studying resonance, but it was in reference to being a body worker. And so I was studying Reiki and energy work, and I was driving to work, and I got hit in a car accident, and I got hit really hard. It was very severe. It actually folded the car in half. I've sent Rachelle, I've sent you pictures of the car. It looked like a little folded tin box. Um, the same hands, because I recognize the face, I recognize the way this feels. The same reach that came in when I was a toddler reached into the car just as I got hit. And I recognized it. I didn't realize I was the one who got hit, but I heard myself scream. Wrapped his arms around me, pulled me out of the car. I felt myself lift up, 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 so far up in the air, and just hold me. I just felt like I was somewhere above the clouds with this being just wrapped around me. And all of a sudden I got dropped back in the car and all this pain set in. Undid my seatbelt, as in he undid my seatbelt and he said, breathe, breathe. And I'm thinking to myself, I can't breathe. And then my next thought is, who is in my car? And I'm trying to look back and I'm realizing I can't move. When the paramedics got there, they're asking me, how did your seatbelt get undone? Why are you in the passenger seat? And they didn't understand. The car was folded in half, so the driver's seat was actually in the passenger seat. It was literally in half, and I didn't have any explanation. I didn't want to offer up that explanation. I was having trouble just staying awake, and I didn't want to breathe. It was hard. My next memory was in the trauma center in the hospital, and I was just trying to process those thoughts and what happened with that. But I was so wrapped up in the memory of recognizing who picked me up and put me back in versus being questioned about how did you get over there and how did you not get caught up in that frame. The frame of the car would have killed me. And I did sustain a lot of injuries. I wasn't injury free, but I did survive it. I'm knocking on wood while I'm saying that. I did survive it. But I recognized the being, and I had a flood of memories of being a toddler and being taken to these places and being told, if you want to talk to me, use this, use this. I needed to have surgery to repair damage that was done to my spine as a result. There were other injuries done, and I refused the surgery to get those done, but the spine was it was very damaged. And so when I went in to get the surgery for the spine, I had a reaction to the anesthetic. The surgery took longer than anticipated, it was what I was told. And I flatlined. I flatlined multiple times, more than once. And I remember being in the hospital and looking at, I didn't realize that I was already out, but I remember looking at the monitors and seeing it flatline. And I didn't realize I wasn't in my body. I just looked at it and I saw it drop, and I'm seeing the doctor reading it, and I'm seeing it go to 78/40. And I heard him say, if it drops any lower, we're going to lose her. She's going to drop into a coma. We're going to, and they're working around me. And then I'm realizing that, oh, wow, I'm not breathing. And then I thought, this feels awesome. And then all of a sudden I got pulled back in my body, and it didn't feel so awesome anymore. It hurt. They had my husband come in the room and start talking to me. And as he's talking to me, I realized that I didn't see any partitions around that whole hospital floor. And it was like I could see through to every single patient's room. So while he's talking to me, I knew what was going on in the room next to me, 2 rooms down, and all over the floor. And I didn't think anything of it. But I told him, a couple rooms down, that man's having difficulty. I don't know if he's going to make it. I think they need to check on him. And here I'm needing someone to check on me. And then I hear another signal going down, and they ask him to leave the room. They say they need him to leave, and the nurse walks him out gently. And then I'm out again. And this time I have this person dressed like a nurse, and he's next to me. And he said he's going to stay with me. And I thought, okay. And I go outside of my body, which I was aware of. And I looked over, and 2 rooms down, that man who I had said to check on was also outside his body. And we both looked at each other. And I'm thinking, this feels awesome again. I'm not breathing. And I'm looking at him and I thought, oh, I think he just passed away. And then I thought, wait a second, did I pass away? Am I dead? And then I followed my husband outside of my room. I followed him out to the waiting area, the lobby, and I saw my mom at the nurse's desk just raising the roof, wondering, asking, yeah, actually yelling, what's going on with my daughter? Why is it taking so long? I want to see her. Just really not even giving the nurse a chance to answer. I mean, just one question after another, and raised voice. She was as loud as I am quiet. And and I could see my dad sitting calmly. I could see my sister-in-law. She was playing a video game. She was playing, I think, video Yahtzee on her, just this mini thing. And then I could see a friend of mine just looking around nervous. And I thought, well, how come I can see all of them and they don't seem to be looking at me? And as soon as that thought came through my head, I was whisked away through this tunnel, or this just whoop, and everything went dark. It was just dark. And then I was in a mist, and it looked like I was in this, almost this floaty kind of boat, just this floaty, very floaty thing. I had a cord around me. It was beautiful gold cord, and I looked in back of me, and there are these three beings, very large, very tall, very large, and again, these the most beautiful, large, luminous eyes. I never focused on whether there were wings or not, if they were made out of feather. It didn't cross my mind at the time. It was that they were so large and their eyes were so beautifully enormous, and they were talking to me. Their lips weren't moving. I understood them. It was all done through telepathy. And then my memories of my childhood NDE, which I wasn't calling an NDE, but just what I went through as a child, what I went through with the car accident, it was flooding back to me at that time. And I was realizing that all these talks, all this information was coming through without any without any lips moving. And that was this profound information that just happened. All this information was happening all at once. All this love was surrounding me all at once. This beautiful mist was surrounding me. I couldn't wait to see where I was going. I was wondering what was going to happen with who I was leaving. I did have that thought. And then I looked forward, and part of me was thinking, am I going to Avalon? I didn't I had a whole other thought process about where am I going? And then I looked back, and the being in front, and she was so beautiful. I'm not sure if she, he, I didn't, I wasn't really focused on, I'm saying she, but that's just what's coming out. She looked at me and she pointed back to where my cord, and I didn't realize my cord was still attached someplace else. My cord was still attached to my body. And I got yanked so fast. It just felt like a snap of a finger, and I was back in the hospital bed. And I was struggling to breathe. I was very angry. I didn't want to struggle. It was painful. I wanted to go back where I was. And here's this nurse who is cradling me, and I'm thinking, why is he touching me? What, they're not supposed to touch you. And he's saying, sweetie, you need to wake up. And I'm thinking, why are you calling me sweetie? On the other hand, I thought, this is the most beautiful person I've ever seen in my life. He's just amazing. And I told him, I can't come back. I need to go. And he said, no, this isn't your time. You need to stay. I need you to wake up. I need you to breathe. And I said, I can't. I don't want to. I went back under again, and I got pulled right back before I went anywhere. That happened a couple times where I just got pulled back. And I finally told him, I said, look, I saw the corpse next to me, and I'm not coming back till you get rid of it. And he said, sweetie, That's you. You need to open your eyes and you need to breathe. And that caught my attention. That really caught my attention. And I breathed. He said he promised that he would stay with me till I was stable, till they got me a room upstairs, that I was going to be in the hospital for a while. And I asked him his name. He told me his name was Michael. I told him my name was Karen. So he kept talking to me, and I told him I didn't want him to leave. He said he wouldn't leave. After I was stabilized, I looked around and I didn't see him. There were so many people in and out of that room, including him, and I didn't see any of them anymore except the doctor and the nurse. Um, all of a sudden, it was towards the evening. It was about 5 or 6 in the afternoon. I got a room upstairs in the hospital, and I asked to thank him. I told him I wanted to either have the wheel the whole bed downstairs to thank him, or if he could come upstairs. And I was told that A, there was not a room full of people there, and B, there was no male nurse there, and C, there was definitely nobody there named Michael. It was just the doctor, the anesthesiologist, and the nurse who was the anesthesiologist nurse.
And so with that, Karen, Michelle, did they have a Michael on staff?
They did not have a Michael on staff. There was no Michael on that floor. There was nobody named Michael who was a nurse. They said there was nobody named Michael who was an anesthesiologist nurse or an anesthesiologist. There's nobody in the ICU working named Michael.
This must have been really kind of mind-blowing for you. What did it take a while to process all of this?
It did. I actually physically tried to leave the hospital telling them that I didn't want to stay there because people died there. I really just, I was angry that I got sent back. I wasn't viewing it as being sent back. I was just viewing it as it was the hardest, I think it was the hardest thing I've ever been through in many ways. From being injured like that to having this amazing experience, having to wake up, which was, it's so hard. I felt like I had the life suffocated out of me. And then I found out I did have the life suffocated out of me. And then I had to learn how to breathe. And and I know everybody's NDE is different as far as how it happened. Some of them are the same, some of them are different. We all have a lot of similarities. Um, but boy, was I upset that I had to come back. It was just so loving, so beautiful, so just all encompassing and accepting. And I didn't want to leave my loved ones. It's just that I never felt that acceptance, that much beauty, that much love. It was so, it wasn't, it was so connected in addition to being that much love and acceptance and beauty all the way around. Everything was connected. We were all one. I knew what they were saying. They knew what I was saying moving, without moving my mouth. It was just this clear knowing, this clear feeling, this just everything was clear. I wasn't thinking ahead of time. I wasn't worrying. There was absolutely no pain, absolutely no pain. And that feeling of not having to breathe, that was amazing. I didn't realize that we think about it. I mean, the brain, we don't think about it consciously, but the brain, the body, we work it. It happens. It's a
Mhm.
mechanism.
So was that particular NDE when you went back in for some reconstructive surgery in your spine and your neck? Was that the last NDE, and was it a while ago when that happened?
That was the last one. And I'm knocking on wood saying that. That was the last one. That was the most difficult one for me to come back. because of my awareness as an adult, of being somewhere else completely different, of seeing multiple beings completely different, and the struggle to come back. I had also already started working as a therapist. And so my ideas and what was presented to me as this is how you work, even though I had my spiritual belief systems, I was taught this is how you work and you don't go outside of these boundaries. And I just had this experience that was completely outside of what I was told I could work. And and I didn't have anyone that I knew of that I could talk to about it. And to top it off, I had this complete download of new experiences and of new side effects. And the side effects were not, I learned about them as I went. And that was a learning experience just all the way around. That was quite the Wi-Fi, which I later on I was told, oh, that goes away in 6 weeks, sometimes 6 months. Well, it's been years, and as you've been around me, you've now met me physically in the flesh here. It did not go away. So with some of us, it stays around. I can't wear a watch. I go through watches. After I had that NDE, I went through 5 computers. I would just they would blow up. When I say blow up, the screen would actually do this weird thing and make a noise, and that would be it. And the actual system would be gone. And thankfully, I had a friend who was in computers, and he was amused by it. I gather he knew someone else with a similar experience, or maybe he had it and didn't want to say anything, but he would just give me another one and ask me to
Yeah.
let him know how long it lasted and what happened.
Well, and I can validate that too. I've with the whole Wi-Fi thing, and I know that sometimes you really struggle, so you have to get on early, depending on, what's happening with the Wi-Fi and so forth. It can be a real struggle. So there's a couple questions here. Were you ever given a reason why you needed to return? Did they ever share that with you?
Yes, I didn't realize it at the time because at the time I felt like I had so many injuries that I had sustained that there were different people in my life that were taking care of me. And what was happening later on is that I turned around and was taking care of other people in my life. I was taking care of my mom for several years. And then I was also here for her. She came home to me for hospice care also. And during the pandemic, it was very hard to coordinate anything. Um,
Yeah.
and so that was very hard. But I was able to get the ICU to put me on FaceTime. And they let me play harp on FaceTime. That was actually the cue that and I didn't really know quite how to string things together other than saying that I was a doctor. I have a harp. Can I be on Face? And they said, would you like to be on? I would love to. And so they put me on the floor, but they put the screen facing my mom. And so for the night shift, I got to face her while she was in the hospital. And then when she had to go into hospice, I was able to have her come home to me. And I put the harp next to her. And so I learned as I went with that. And it was very intuitive. And so that was my first at hospice was with my mom, which was really that was hard. But but what a gift because I wouldn't have wanted her to be with anyone else. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. And we've talked about this a couple times. So when you started to play the harp, I think, can you explain kind of your journey, like, how you learned from maybe a classical point and then it kind of morphed into something else? Can you explain that journey a little bit?
Well, so I got a Celtic harp originally, a folk harp with levers like this one. It was a little taller. And I took lessons. I was trained to read what's on the page, play what's on the page, and that's it. So no improvisations. I wouldn't have at that age have even thought to do anything intuitive with it. That wouldn't have come into my head. And I was in my teens. And so it was play what's on the page, that's it. When I had my car accident, I was no longer able to grasp that training. I looked at the music and all it looked like to me was a bunch of dots. And I was really devastated. I thought, oh no, I can't read music. I can't play. And that's what I thought. I cannot play. And I stopped. I literally just stopped. And so for quite a while, I just didn't touch it. Even after the NDE to repair my neck, I didn't touch it for quite a while because I thought I can't. It's just not going to happen. And what I was doing, and this is something I did when I first got the harp, which was something I did when I would circle it, when they would bring me in the garden. I was talking to the beings through the soundboard. I would read prayers, I would read poetry, I would write journals and prayers, and I would read it through the board and do glissandos or chords. And so that's what I continued to do. And so I used it as a form of resonance, and I would hold it and bring it close, and I would feel that vibration, and I would feel an answer back. But I wouldn't try playing it. And somewhere after my surgery, something happened where I put my hands on it, and all of a sudden I got this communication. And it was after doing some sort of an art exploration. And I don't draw. I'm not a trained artist by any stretch, but it was after doing some form of art, just where you look at a mirror and then you just start drawing. It's a meditational, and you see what comes out on the page. And what came out on the page is this message, like this almost like this microphone, like this big um, um, microphone or some sort of a auditory thing from the sky, and these messages coming down. And for some reason, I associated that with a harp because I drew harps below it. And so I started playing what I heard just coming in. And then I started hearing what I called the opera people again. And that
That's
was improvisation. And that's when I started doing, and at the time I thought, well, I'm not doing anything. And when I did an event at IANS, somebody called me, and they were with the Harp Therapy Association, and they said, I would like you to come on here. And they trained me in teaching, and that's where I was trained also in resonant kinesiology. And that's where I learned that, oh, I really am doing something. There really is an intuitive playing. There really is a form to therapeutic harp and to resonance.
So can you tell us a little bit about that, Karen Michelle, meaning that the resonant tone, you've talked about this, everybody has a resonant tone or a vibratory complex, whether it's their voice or their body, and how you kind of tune into that. Can you talk a little bit about that when you're playing the harp?
And just to back it up a little bit, we're all resonant beings. All of our cells in our body, each and every cell gives off resonance. It gives off tones, not just the voice and not just from the ears, but every single cell in the body. We're a complete makeup of resonators, all of us. And that forms a connection. It forms a connection with us to each other. It forms a connection with us through the universe, with different beings. and I know people have different belief systems with different beings, so I'm talking about my belief systems with different beings, but that's my connection. But we all have this resonance. We also have the resonance with our voice. We have different parts of our bodies that respond to different notes, whether it's on a harp, whether it's on a guitar, whether it's on a piano. It's just how it responds. I'm not using the same system as, say, what would be responding exactly with the chakras. Although I do believe that with the chakras, they also respond to different notes. I believe that they shift, all depending on your mood. And also chakras aren't fixed. They don't have, I know pictures are fixed. So when you look at a flat picture, it's a flat chakra. But when you're doing a meditation or you're moving around the room or you start taking that resonance and then you're turning it into movement, because we're vibrating, we're all vibratory beings, the chakras move. So it would be impossible for them to just stay on this one note. They would have to move, even if it's just a half step, but they would have to move from this one step to another to just form this connection, and for it to just be one note to another note to another note isn't quite, it's too simplistic of an explanation. There has to be more of a connection to really resonate. And then you have all the connections down your arms and down your legs and your eyes and your nose and your mouth. So there's different notes that are either going to make you feel wonderful and help alleviate pain or relax you. And there's even notes that you might hear that you're going to say, I don't ever want to hear that one again. Do not play that song in that key for me, or don't do that improvisation in that key. There's notes that people don't like. They might cause pain in a certain part of the body.
Thanks for that. Yeah, that's perfect. And, you also had mentioned, Karen Michelle, that you were working as a therapist and kind of processing some of this. I guess what I'm thinking about, maybe you can take us through like the journey to the discovery of your gift and how you have now shifted it to help humanity, and kind of maybe take us through that journey.
I had just I had recently started working as a therapist after that NDE, where I had a full-time clientele. So I had started working before, but afterwards, I already had a full-time clientele. I'd taken off time, I'd come back in, and here I have a full-time clientele. I walk in, I sit down, and I'm starting to do different intakes, different assessments. And so I'm in a situation where I'm looking down and taking notes and then looking up at the client I'm working with, which I don't like to do, but the different requirements of different places or the state require you to turn in notes for whatever the situation is that they require for the funding. And I would hear the client's answer, and so I'm writing and I'm answering them and we're talking. And what I would start hearing one after another, not every client, but quite a few, is, I didn't say anything. How did you know that? And I had the same look on my face that Noelle just had. And that was happening a lot. And that used to happen when I was real little. And then that's what I shut down. And all of a sudden that floodgate was wide open. And here I was in a situation where I couldn't just say, you know what, I need to go home now. Something's not right. I was booked. And I thought, I'm going to lose my job. But I didn't. I got more books, which surprised me. I thought that would have been fear-provoking. But I guess there was somewhat of a comfort in that, for not having to say every single detail. And I also don't judge. So, and I'm not there to judge. That's not my role, and it's not who I am. It's just not who I am. But I was still alarmed that I now had to look directly at this person to see when their lips moved and when they didn't.
That's amazing. You know, Karen Michelle, one of the things that you called this talk is a fairy guide to being human. And so I know you have a connection to the elementals, but before we go into that, you know, and maybe I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but I know that there have been people who have lost children and are looking for comfort in some way. And you know, I try to comfort people, and maybe you can talk from your perspective about how loving and joyful the other side is a little bit, and let them know, even though we miss them and it looks like it's a you know, a traumatic event, but how spirit, it's just beautiful, you know. Maybe you can articulate that a little bit.
Sure. And I'm going to start it with when I have a loss, I cry, I grieve, and it's difficult to be used to seeing them in person in front of you or picking up the phone and knowing that you can call them or visit them right next to you, or you can reach out and you can hug them physically, you can hold them physically. And so this is now a shift in connection. So it doesn't mean that I don't have that feeling of loss. Um, because on this plane, as we're able to grasp and hug and hold, this has now been shifted to a different type of connection or a different type of relationship. What I saw on the other side and what I sense, and I'm not sure why I say the other side, because I feel like it's almost like it's a portal that you can look in, that you can open up. It's so beautiful and it's so loving, and it's just all encompassing, and it's so connected that when when one passes through, they're met with so much connection, so much love. There's not a oneness. I know there's some people that have said that they saw a void or they saw a darkness. Once that happens and once that goes away, if you can sit with that, and I don't know that you have a choice, you do sit with that, it opens up. It opens up. You're greeted and you're taken in. And sometimes the view is, how do you view darkness? As in, mine went dark, but I didn't view that as scary. I just thought, ooh, this is where I was aware I wasn't breathing. And I was more caught up in, I am not in any pain anymore. And then I went through the mist and it got light and fluffy and beings were there. But where I saw children on the other side, they were happy. They were very loved. They were also surrounded by, I'm I'm guessing that they're ancestral. And when I say ancestral, they're family. And what it felt like is that their family that goes back quite a ways. And they all seem to recognize each other at that time. Where I'm thinking that over here, if you were to ask somebody, do you remember so and so, or do you know in your family tree going back to 18 or 17, such and such, you know, you have somebody named this name, that they probably wouldn't recognize that, and neither would I. But over there, there's a complete recognition, and there's a complete acceptance, and there's a knowing. It's just knowing that this is a connection, this is a belonging, this is where I am loved, this is where I belong. And there doesn't seem to be any sort of shift in age. It's you're very much restored to this beautiful, healthy, painless love.
That's so beautiful. And Karen Michelle, I asked you a question before about the title, but can we experience your harp playing and what you do and kind of take us through it? And then maybe we can then talk a little bit about the fairies and the elementals, because I think that would be the bridge. The harp is the bridge. And if you could take us through something where, you just start to channel and play and get to that zone and bring in spirit so we can really feel it. That would be wonderful.
Sure. Let me make sure that I don't have a kitty right behind me. My cats are right here somewhere.
That was so beautiful. Thank you for that, Karen Michelle. It's really wonderful. And I have to admit that I had Karen Michelle play harp in one of my meditations. And it was really nice. And so I'm just grateful for her heartfelt playing for us. Can you tell us, Karen Michelle, a little bit about, your journey with the elementals and the fairies too? Because I think that that's really beautiful. And a lot of times we don't, know if they exist or and so if you could share that with us a little bit, that whole kingdom that exists, and talk a little bit about that and how it's related to the harp.
Um, I started seeing different different elementals. I didn't start calling them elementals till very recently, but I would call them the names that they would give me. And so for I guess different purposes, so my different people who I would talk to that it was okay to talk to them about it, I would call them fairies. And I started seeing them when I was real little. And some of them would be small, some of them would be much taller than me. So they weren't, they were not what I would see, just like the different beings and angels I saw, they were not anything I saw in different magazines or Bibles or dolls. They looked very, very different. I did see some history books where they looked like some of the folklore, very, very similar. And that was interesting to me. Um, and when I showed some of my closer friends, they thought that was intimidating because they thought they looked very well, they didn't look glamorous like they do in some of the cartoons, but they weren't aggressive towards me. I was told this is how you respect them, this is how you address them, and this is how we're going to interact with you. And so I knew not to be a bull in a china shop with them, uh, for lack of a better term. And I would leave them gifts of um, either music, or I would read a poem that I wrote, or I would leave them later on when I started uh, doing crystals. I would leave a crystal in a certain area, and then I would change either the way it was sitting or the combination of them. I would ask them, would you like it this way? Would you like it that way? Or do you want a different crystal? And so my crystal collection kind of consists of what they told me they would like to feel. And so that was a huge part of my growing up. Huge part of my growing up. I just loved it. And I have a very healthy respect, by the way, a very, very healthy respect for them. And then when I was sent to the UK to learn resonant kinesiology, I also got a taste of how different they are over there, because they're a little more primitive, a little more ancient. And whether you're smiling, whether you have yourself turned so you're not directly facing them, if they don't want to be disturbed, they let you know. And yeah, and they did not, and they let me know, and they threw something at me, and so I left fast. But I also had an experience there where I felt like I wanted to hug the earth, and that was in Scotland. It was on the Isle of Iona, and I felt a heartbeat from the earth. I've never felt that before, where it was just beating. And I laid down and I put my arms out, and I held the earth. I hugged it. And this bouquet came up. I've never seen anything like that before, but this tiny bouquet came up, and it was a huge voice, but the voice said, "For you." And I wasn't alone. I was with a friend, and she's taking pictures, and I was surprised that was okay. But I asked, "For me?" And I looked at her, and she said, "That's for you." And and so I said, "Can I pick this?" Because I didn't want to get hit with anything again, because this was just half a mile away. And they said, "For you," or he said, "For you." And so I picked it. And I have it pressed in an album. I kept it. I was surprised, but I kept it the whole time. I was able to fly home with it, and I still have it. And it's this very colorful bouquet. And this is in mid-October. There were no flowers anywhere there.
That is so amazing, Karen Michelle. And it's real, I've experienced those elementals, and they're just really amazing, and they love the gifts. They love for us to leave those gifts. And so if you ever want to leave, they like nuts, they like crystals, they like different things that you can leave out for them. So it's really something. Um, what let's talk a little bit about your mediumship, and maybe give a quick read through the resonance of the harp and some of the information you're getting. With me working with you, and I hate to say a student, but you came and you really applied yourself and really learned a lot, but you also learned how all this information can come together, and you can deliver messages. I actually met her through Sean, through the IONS group, and he made the introduction, and she was looking to really, kind of, because of all the gifts that have come in through her NDEs, she really didn't know how to put everything together. And so I met her, and I was very impressed, obviously, with her resume being, a doctor in psychology and all of that. And she certainly had a lot to contribute. And when I discovered her NDEs and all the information that is coming through, she understood exactly what I was talking about, because she experienced this. And getting herself to really understand the clear seeing, the clear knowing, all the different clairs that you work from a mediumship perspective, but then putting it all together and then being able to deliver it. And she is a therapist, so the key is that what do you say to to someone who you're giving a reading to versus being a therapist? And she's had to kind of work through that, as well as the art of being a medium, and bringing all this together and kind of packaging it. And she has such a loving and wonderful presence. The key is that her working on really being confident and comfortable about delivering what she's getting from spirit, because she does get so much information very quickly, and it comes through, and it's very beautiful. And she can even see angels behind you, for example. And a lot of times that box that is there on the harp is where a lot of that resonance comes through, and she connects with you and she connects with the angels, and this information just starts to flow. So what I was able to help her with really is packaging it and putting it together, and understanding it, but also pushing her a little bit more to get more information and feeling comfortable with delivering things. A lot of times as a medium, we have to have a social filter, especially when we're in a group scenario like this. We can't just, say everything. We have to be cognizant of how we deliver things at a very high level. And so, and she's very cautious that way. But at the same time, you can feel the love and the healing that comes through when she's bringing through not only your loved one, but a message that is so, so beautiful. So, and it is like she is angelic. So, yeah. Okay, she's back. Thanks for allowing me to fill in. And so, Karen Michelle, if you want to bring Noelle on, let's do just a little bit of a taste of a reading.
Sure. Is there any part, I'm going to ask first, is there any part of you that's either aching or that you're feeling that you want relaxed or pain? Or do you want me to do an intuitive?
I think maybe do it intuitive.
Okay, and can you talk just a little bit? Just keep talking.
Sure. I think everyone here tonight has just been completely enthralled with you, your gifts, what you've, the joy and the beauty in your story. Just amazing. And so many beautiful things have been put in the comments. And I'm just so honored. This is a very special evening. And Bob sent me a private message. He says, how did it get to be that late? It's like she's already, it's going like the time he just like lost complete track of time. And that's fine. That's fine. That's absolutely fine. So, yeah. So I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
That was so wonderful, Karen Michelle. Was there any intuitive message that you got for Noelle when you were doing that? Did you receive anything?
You do so much beautiful work in this world, and that it's very important for you to take the time to realize that with all the faces that you put on in this world, they're all beautiful. There's no right or wrong one, there's no need for judgment. We all go through all different stresses in this world, and there's all different hurdles, that come up. And right when we think that they're done, and right when we think that they're neatly tied up in a bow, they spill out. But they're not insurmountable. And you've really been amazing with how you've been with the community. And also, you really, really, really need to give yourself a lot of love for what you've done for your family, because that is an area where you do not acknowledge yourself. That's what I'm getting.
Mm.
And that is an area where you are so loved and you are so being watched. There's a connection, and they do see what you're doing, they feel what you're doing, they love what you've done. It's so necessary. And if you hadn't been here and you hadn't done what you've done, things would have been falling apart. So you've really been a blessing, and you are a blessing.
Thank you, Karen Michelle.
I never break confidence, and so when I'm giving a message, especially if it's a big group, I tread lightly, and so I hope it makes sense to you.
It does. It makes a lot of sense. And I appreciate that very much. And I also just want to say that when I listen to your music, I think it really resonated with my inner child, because I just was dancing and I was playing hopscotch and I was playing and I was having a blast. So, but I do appreciate, it was like all that other stuff was gone. And I think that's a key to self-care, right? When you could just say, enough of this, and let's have some me time.
Yes, let the child come out, because they're never gone. Kind of linear. We're all these ages are all around all at once. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. I just am so honored that you did that for me. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Noelle and Bob, and for hosting this. This is just amazing, and having us on here. I realize that we're almost at the hour and a half mark. I didn't know if it's appropriate to open it up for questions, or where do we go from here? And so, maybe you can lead us from that perspective, Noelle.
Well, I would love, everyone has been so attentive because this has been so amazing, that I would just love to be able to turn on the video, ask people to turn on their cameras if they can, because I know some of you can't. I just love to see as many smiling faces here of gratitude for this evening. And I'm going to make it so, I really made it difficult for anybody to do anything, because sometimes when we have high vibrational people, I'm just going to say, sometimes other energies want to come in and spoil things. So I had the room really locked down. So everyone, you can turn on your video now. And if you want to have some interaction or a comment, just, we're casual here. Just wave your hand and you can unmute yourself. If anyone like to say anything or ask anything, that would be wonderful. Because if you leave it to me, we'll be here all night. So, so is there anyone who wants to jump in here? Eleanor, do I see your hand up there? I'm going to ask you to unmute.
There we go.
There you go.
Not really, but that was so beautiful. And Karen Michelle, I don't know what happened to you over there, but you came back an angel. I have to say that. Such lovely energy you shared with us tonight. Thank you so much.
Yeah, she's an earth angel, that's for sure. We're so grateful for her.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well,
And
great.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Noelle, sorry.
I was just going to say that I know that you are working with Rachelle. And I know every Sunday, Rachelle, you have a class where people can develop their skills. And that's where I met you. Not that I'm developing any skills. I'm just there as a receiver. So people can practice.
Yeah.
That's fine. But
Yeah. Well, thanks for that. Yeah, we do have a development circle, a mediumship development circle where people can practice their mediumship. And we also invite people who want to receive reads. And obviously, Karen Michelle is a very popular person that people want to get with to have a read. But it's really practicing our mediumship skills and developing that. And we usually have, different subjects that we talk about a little bit. And then we try to practice either whether it's intuitive or mediumship or whatever. And so we do open that up because if we don't, we can sit there and read each other, right? And then we get to know each other. And so we like people to come in and certainly, come in and do that. And I guess I can post the link in the co-creators convergence for this Sunday. It's from 6:30 to 8:30 Eastern time. And we open it up with a meditation and then usually some type of lesson. And then we go into breakout rooms. And certainly there's people there to just receive reads. So it would be good to have you.
yeah, it's very generous. And I've just had wonderful experiences there. So that's a possibility. And if you put it in the chat too, also I'll add it when I edit this. And
Okay.
I would like Roxanne, our CCC member Roxanne, who always, I think her email is like fairygodmother@gmail or something like that. But anyway, I want Roxanne to share the experience she had.
Thank you. Well, I feel so much resonance with your journey, Karen Michelle. As you shared, there was just so much room for our sensitivities to be here, and that's a beautiful gift in and of itself. Just permission to be. You're sharing your story makes it easier to be with that connection that we have. And so, yes, I love playing with the fairies, and I'm a fairy godmother to a circle of women for 20 years now. And I have a lot of inspiration that comes through, not just from the natural elemental world, of course, but on that mediumship level. But and like you were talking about the different, there's heaviness that comes with those jolts in and out of the body, whether it's yours or people around you. And I could totally relate to all of that. And we did have a very serious loss earlier, right at the turn of the new year. It was not a happy event at all. And your harp playing today, I came in with no particular intention except to just enjoy and receive and share the space with everyone here. But clearly, without even any invitation, my grandson he just beamed right in, and it was so exciting to my heart because it was that simple. I had just seen film from a wedding reception 17 years ago, and I had forgotten how we had danced, and he was quite a dancer, and he was a step grandson if the age thing throws you off a little bit. So and he was saying to me instantly, simultaneously while you were playing, shall we keep dancing? And his siblings hadn't been born yet, and so this was the first time they saw this film, and this was just a couple of nights ago, and so I'm just touched. Thank you.
Well, beautiful experience. Thank you, Roxanne, for sharing that. And what a surprise it was to see you here. But if there were any CCC call she was going to be on, it was going to be this one.
It was interesting how this rolled on my feed is so magically tonight. Yes.
We love when that happens. Yeah. Just anyone else have any questions? Or Karen Michelle, how does someone work with you? Do they just send you an email, or do you have a website that
I don't have a website yet, but I do have I think my email's there. Is my email there?
I have put your email in there a couple times.
Okay.
Because people have come at different times. So it looks like c_KMS@yahoo.com.
Yeah, and it's the underscore, not a dash.
Underscore, correct. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. So we have another message here.
Well, that would be good. No, it's a drop-in thing. It's not like like a commitment thing. You can actually just come and drop in when it makes sense for you. It's every Sunday evening. I do send out a message if it is canceled. So if you join my mailing list, you'll stay up to date with everything. You can go to I don't want to promote myself. This is all about Karen Michelle. So,
well, it's really about both of you, because you both have brought this beautiful gift to all of us. And I want to make sure that everyone knows that they can contact both of you. And so, yeah, you can find her at RachelleGehman.com.
It does feel to me, her medium circles also feel like a prayer circle, as far as how we get very close, we get connected, and it's very beautiful energy. And I love being connected in just groups like this, and they're rare. It's rare. So I love being connected like this. This has been a very beautiful connection with me. So I love working with Rachelle, and I love being here tonight. Thank you so much.
It's just really been our joy. And I recognize Anita. She is one of the readers. I don't know. I know there were some others that were on the call tonight, but I haven't met everybody in the group.
Yeah, Antoinetta is learning. She's practicing, and then Tina Marie is a wonderful Reiki master and healer. And then so there are people that have joined, and I've recognized a few people here, and John actually is a medium as well, although he has not attended the circle yet, but maybe we can
John.
maybe we can coax him into coming. And also there was one other question too that I don't want to skip over. Do you need to have an NDE to have an out-of-body experience? And the answer is no. You do not need to have an NDE to have an out-of-body experience. And a lot of people do have it very randomly, but you can actually train yourself to have out-of-body experiences and actually, start to, whether it's remote viewing or going to different areas within the different dimensions and so forth that you can access. And the more you expand your awareness and consciousness, the more that you learn, and you learn how this world is more of an illusion than reality. And over there, it's more a reality. And it's so loving, and it's not about polarity in any way. It's really a beautiful experience. And so and as you can tell from being with Karen Michelle, how beautiful it is, and having that experience and the love vibration and bringing that back to us, and and just experiencing that joy and that love and bringing it through mediumship or whatever modality of healing that you can bring to people, because this world does need a lot of healing. Things are breaking down. So it can be rebuilt, and there's an evolutionary process that is happening with the human consciousness. And so the more people that we have that are embracing their gifts, the better this world is going to be. So we can provide that healing and guidance and that upliftment to humanity.
Beautifully
I
said.
wanted
Beautifully
to
said.
say also with this, same with the out of body experience and with the spiritually transformative experience, and the Kundalini experience, people have those without having an NDE. So there's many profound and very beautiful experiences that you can have without having an NDE. People have different experiences with the NDE. Some people have an NDE and they don't have the other experiences, or they don't have a memory of an NDE. So they're all very personal. But yes, you can have the OBEs and the STEs and the Kundalini awakenings without an NDE, and they're quite beautiful. Yeah.
And you can be in denial of your NDE as well for many, many years. And I'm speaking from personal experience from that one. Yeah. So anyway, and Karen Michelle, I would say I've never had an NDE, and she'd go in her mind, oh, yes, you have. You've had 2 of them. And I didn't realize. Yeah. So that was, she kept saying that. Oh, yes. She's like, when is she going to admit she had an NDE? So she, then finally it came rushing back to me. So she's been a catalyst for that for me as well. So lots of healing around Karen. So, yeah.
Wonderful relationship. That's very, very awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both so much. We've gone over time here, and the accolades and everything in the chat, amazing circle. I love it and look forward to every Sunday. And Karen Michelle, behind you to your right, between the 2 harps, you had a huge orb around you the whole time you recounted your story, and 3 smaller ones. Perhaps you are fairies. So Antoinetta, thank you for that observation. And
yeah, they're always there. We see them all the time.
Okay, I got to go out in the yard and leave some little bonbons and some crystals on you guys. No, what I really want to do is go to the island of Iona. That's on my bucket list. And I know somebody who has a place there, I think. So maybe we'll get there one day, Rosemary, again.
Let's do a retreat.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Right. Eleanor says, thank you all. This was wonderful. Well, before we close, I do want to give a little promo for our event that's coming up in October 6th through the 11th. Every year this will be our 11th year that the co-creators have got together in person. And this year, our theme is joy. So, it's just, there is so much heaviness that we need to bring back that joy, put the spotlight on that, and just celebrate together. So if you want more information about it, it's co-creatorsconvergence.com/2024. And we still have an early bird special that goes to the end of this month. So check it out. It's going to be in Highlands, North Carolina, on the mountain, 4,200 feet on a mountaintop. So beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains. So hope to see you all there. Hope to see you every Thursday, because we have amazing guests. If you saw that reel we had coming out at the beginning, wow, I'm impressing myself. What, because I have friends like Rachelle and Kathy Mason and others who bring us such wonderful guests. So thank you, everyone. Love you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen Michelle. Thank you, Rachelle.
Yes.
Thank you.
Beautiful evening. May peace prevail on earth.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.